Hi, thank you. What this meeting is, oh, got it, okay. I'm gonna step away for 1 second.
Okay. Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed the keynote. I met him in November and he's just one of the coolest people on the planet. I mean, he's awesome. Okay, so I think that is everybody. I'm gonna do a quick, oh, we've got someone connecting to audio still. Well, we'll go ahead and get started anyway. That way we make sure we've got plenty of time. I'm gonna go through and do a quick introduction and then I'm gonna throw it over to Nina to go through and do her amazing workshop for us. Okay. Let me. All right, so welcome everybody to the branding workshop at PRSSA's district conference. Our speaker and lovely presenter today is Nina Abnee. Nina is currently a full-time instructor in the College of Communications at DePaul University and is passionate about raising the next generation of advertising and public relations professionals. Before becoming an instructor, she worked for 30 years in advertisement, mostly at Leo Burnett, located here in Chicago. She drove business results for her clients and the agency through visionary leadership and creativity. In 2010, Nina received the accolade for the Chicago Advertising Women of the Year by the Chicago Advertising Federation. In 2017, she founded Eyes Forward, a coaching consultancy with the mission to help mid-level senior managers to drive business results with more effective leadership behaviors. Today, in this workshop, you will be taught about communicating your unique and authentic self that includes your resume and LinkedIn profile that reflect your personality. So without further ado, here's Nina Abnee to share her expertise.
Great, thank you so much for that nice introduction. Oh, it looked like somebody was in the waiting room. I was going to tell you. Okay, sounds good. Let me start by sharing my screen here, getting up my presentation. Which, oh dear, let's see. I've got to, I have to take it out of, okay, hold on. There we go. Oh, now I have to. There we go, now we have it. All right. Now I can everyone see that? Good. All right. Excellent. And you can hear me okay too? So I'm talking today about To Thine Own Self Be True, which is one of my favorite, I'm dog sitting and my grand dog has decided to suddenly start playing. So that's the exciting part about virtual, right? So To Thine Own Self Be True was always my mantra when I was in advertising and working at Leo Burnett, working on brands. I was always very, very concerned. I think one of the things that I loved doing was thinking about what the brand really was about. And our communications actually about the brand, or are we going off brand? And I can tell you that all the times I was in advertising, when the advertising didn't work, when we were in trouble because the campaign wasn't working, it was largely because we were off brand. Now I'm not wild, so that's why I kind of came with the To Thine Own Self Be True. And then when I did my coaching, certification, I was really excited about coaching because what I was doing was helping people be true to themselves. I don't love the words personal branding. They just happen to be the thing that everybody's talking about. It's sort of the easy words. But what I really hope for you today and for you to get out of this workshop is the ability for you to get in touch with your authentic self and figure out how you want to show up, how you want to make sure that your authentic self, the thing that makes you unique, shows up in the marketplace. How do you communicate that? And we're going to run through some exercises. And honestly, it sounds like a big task, and it kind of is, but it's not complicated. So here we go. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about myself, which will help you introduce a little bit to my brand. So in the interest of getting through this, I'm going to do some reading of my presentation. Other times I won't, but with this part I want to read. So I absolutely love Chicago. The fact that I'm a Chicagoan, born and raised, is a big part of who I am and my brand. Another part of who I am or my brand is that I love the Beatles. In fact, I saw the Beatles in concert twice. I'm sorry to say I am that old, although I was a very little girl. My grandparents on my mother's side were Swedish immigrants in the 1900s. My grandfather was a carpenter and had a hand in building the classic Chicago bungalow dotting the south side. And this isn't an actual picture of my house, but it's pretty close. One of which I lived in until I was 11, when racial unrest drove my family to the northern suburbs, where my parents bought the cheapest house they could find so I could go to Neutra High School, which was determined at the time one of the best high schools in the country. It was like we moved to a different planet, but I learned to adjust and eventually found a way to fit into a much richer and educated community. My father was a feminist. He wanted me to go to college and become anything I wanted to be. As a result, I was the first girl of my family to go to college. He even told my 9-year-old self that I was the right age to be the first woman president of the United States. I think I might be a little young for that now. I don't know when we're going to see that, but my parents made great sacrifices so I could go to college, and I have never taken that for granted. The reason I wanted to tell you that story about me is I wanted you to get to know me a little bit better, because our stories. So, the other part about me is when I worked at Leo Burnett, that's most of my career. And I did get my certification from CPCC, the Certified Professional Coactive Coach. Some of my big clients when I was at Leo Burnett were Allstate, Kraft, and McDonald's. And now, of course, I'm teaching at DePaul. So I wanted to tell you all of this because our stories are the foundation of who we are today. Our histories and our experiences have shaped our values, our actions, our personalities, and the impact that we have on the world around us. And these are the core elements of any brand, personal or commercial. Let's talk about some commercial brands for a hot minute. And then I'll go into a little more detail about what I see as the value of the personal brand. And we're going to help you create that authentic brand today. And hopefully we have a small enough group that we can actually do some exercises. So let's take a look at Southwest and American Airlines. What they do is exactly the same thing. They fly airplanes, but how and why they do it is extraordinarily different. And that's really true. In advertising, lots and lots and lots of people do it. But what's different is how we do it. Southwest Airlines' vision is to become the world's most loved, most flown, and most profitable airline. The mission of Southwest Airlines is dedicated to the highest quality of customer service, delivered with a sense of warmth, friendliness, individual pride, and company spirit. Southwest's vision and mission drives everything they do. Friendly, casual personality and design, bags fly free, one-class service. American Airlines mission's a little bit more complicated, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but at the end of the day, they have a totally different approach to what they do. They want to be the world's most reliable, affordable, and profitable airline. So money is very important to them, and they tend to cater to the global business travel because that's where they make most of their money. So that drives what they do. They have different classes of service. Southwest Airlines values accessibility and egalitarianism. American Airlines values luxury and added services, but you have to pay for them. So you can see that what they do, and I want you to hold on to this thought, is exactly the same thing, but how they do it is very different. And this is true for most brands in most categories. This happens to be a particularly good example. So if you've never seen this TED Talk, it's Simon Sinek, 2009. It's pretty famous. It's pretty famous among marketers. And if you have never seen it, I suggest that you do watch it. It's really inspiring, and it's amazing how current it is, even though some of the brands he uses that he says weren't so great don't even exist anymore. But anyway, his TED Talk is about start with why, how great leaders inspire action. And his premise is people don't buy, going the wrong direction. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So his whole point was you have to, as your brand, you have to start with why. Why is Southwest Airlines in business? Then how do they do things, and then what they do. And that most marketers start with what and go toward in, and the what is not differentiating. So my take on this for personal branding is how you do things is more important than what you do. And if you take nothing else away from this workshop today, I hope that you will always remember this. How you do things is more important than what you do. Because there are lots of people who do what you do. Nobody does it the way you do it, nor do they do it for the same reasons or from the same perspective. How and why are at the core of your authentic self. And that's what we're going to dig into today. This is interesting. I seem to be freezing up. Sorry. Okay, there we go. There are thousands, last I checked, it was like 11,000 titles about personal branding on Amazon. And the vast majority of them say things like this up in the corner: 10 steps to a new professional you. The road to recognition, no bullshit guide to increasing your self-worth by simply being yourself. You know, there's another one up here that I'm not, how to brand yourself online. They tend to be about making money, getting a job, marketing yourself. There's nothing really wrong with that, but it's almost like they're trying to tell you to be something different. Create a better you, how to sell yourself. I don't want you to create a better you. I want to be you to be the awesome self you already are, and make sure that you're communicating that. Many of them do give good advice on how to put your personal brand into the marketplace, but frankly, that's never been easier with LinkedIn and other other social media, which I think you are all pretty darn good at. But my interest is in helping you and my students define their personal brand is about more than getting a job. It's about happiness. Happiness is that feeling that comes over you when you know life is good and you can't help but smile. It's the opposite of sadness. Happiness is a sense of well-being, joy, or contentment. And when people are successful or safe or lucky, they feel happiness. No one ever complained about feeling too much happiness. Yet we do know that there's days we're happy and other days that we're not as happy. Maybe we could understand a little bit more about ourselves so we know what's driving those feelings. I don't know why. I guess I have to use this thing over here now. Okay, so I really like this quote from Steve Jobs, because to be fulfilled is defined as satisfied or happy because of fully developing one's abilities or character. And Steve Jobs said, the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to do what you love. So a lot of what we're trying to do is make sure that we are doing things that we love, that we're in an environment where we can succeed and that has shared values. So knowing your impact on the world, which is what you really do for people and for yourselves, your values, your actions, and your personality will help you market your authentic self. But I believe it will also help you lead a happier, more fulfilled life. Here's why. It will help you make decisions. It will help you know what's bothering you. It'll help you understand disagreements that you have either at work or at home. It will help you respect, value differences. It would help you be confident in your choices and be more successful in your career too. Because if you are making decisions based on what you want out of life and what's most important to you, all of these things will be true. You know, when we argue with our loved ones, if any of you are married or a boyfriend or girlfriend or somebody that you might love, when you generally have arguments. And generally those arguments are not about what you're arguing about. There are a clash in values. And if you can understand that, you'll have a happier relationship. So don't take my word for it. I know a lot of people might be saying, I don't know about this, or maybe if you came to this, you're already a believer. But here are some quotes I have from some of my former students. I teach this in the grad school at DePaul. I learned so much during my time in your class, both about my career ambitions and about myself. I never expected to learn so much about my values and how much they should drive my future. This work has led me to practical ways to balance my life so I authentically match my values and bring me real joy. It's been an empowering, enjoyable, and very enlightening experience. I couldn't recommend it more. So it does work. I created a resume and portfolio that was a true reflection of me. And then I looked for jobs that would fit my personal brand and would look at my submitted materials as a true reflection of me. This meant not applying to many jobs and saying no to certain opportunities that I felt would not fit my authentic self or make me happy. That's one of my favorites because that's exactly what I want. I want you to take jobs that you're going to be successful and happy in. And it's not always that easy, but then you'll also know when to leave. Finally, some think it's hard work, some think it's lots of fun, and it may even feel daunting, but it's not complicated. And I'm going to simplify it for you. And I would like you to take the perspective of, hey, this is fun. This is me. I get to market myself. Because if you just change your perspective a little bit and have a little bit more fun with it, you'll be a little freer. So let's get started. Here are the key elements or a framework for creating your brand. And by the way, these are the same. I've simplified it a bit, but if you were to start your own business, you would want to know what's your purpose, what's the impact this business is going to have, what do you value, what actions are you going to take that vote on those values, and what kind of personality is your business. So all we're going to do now is look at yourself and figure out your values, your actions, your personality, and we're going to do impact and purpose last. If you do have a little, I think the organizers might have passed out a little handout. If you have a printout of this handout, you might hang on to it and take some notes in hard copy. Otherwise, you could take notes on anything you want. So here is what each of these things really mean. The impact is, what is your impact on the world around you? What makes you special? Why you exist? Your values are what you stand for. What is most important in your life? What makes you happy? Your actions are what you do, like literally actually what you do all day, how you live into your values, what actions do you take? And your personality is your style, your traits, your character, and your temperament. You can quickly see that if you were Southwest Airlines, how this little construct kind of creates their brand, what they're in the marketplace, what they stand for, what actions they take, bags fly free, one class service, and they have a very friendly, casual personality. That creates their brand. So we're going to go into all four of these, but do it for you. The first thing you want to do, and we're not going to have time to do this here today. I have to make sure I stay in time here. But I'm going to give you a chance to get a little bit started. But the very first thing I would ask you to do is to write your story. The psychologist, Professor Dan McAdams, provides us with a very simple model for understanding how humans, our personality develops over time in 3 layers. So this is like proof, right? This is a psychologist. He's done a lot of studying. Our foundation is who we are at birth and how we develop in early life, our traits. The second layer is our goals and values, what we believe and strive for as we get older. And the final layer is our stories, what we choose to remember about our past and how we make it meaningful and in the future. We make sense of who we are by piecing together stories from our reconstructed past, perceived present, and imagined future. So I'm going to kind of breeze through this a little bit, but I've written my stories many ways. You can look at some of them on my website, but this is one way. I think actually this is on my website, but I just wrote this story starting from a childhood experience. When I was growing up, once every summer, my family went to Ravinia. Whoopsie. What am I on? Somehow I suddenly went to a play it. Okay, let's try this again. My family went to Ravinia, an outdoor music venue, for a picnic and concert. One year, as we were leaving the park, we got trapped in a traffic gridlock. Cars from every direction moved into the intersection and none of us could move. There didn't seem to be a way out of the mess. So I jumped out of the car and started directing traffic until the car started moving. My dad said to my brother, someday she's going to make a great executive. I was 16 and I just wanted to get home. But stepping in to lead and solving problems turns out to be the thing that I have always done. My father was a human resources consultant and my mother an artist, so I guess I was meant to be in advertising where I could use both my left and right brain. I spent 30 years at Lear Burnett in Chicago, solving client business problems, inspiring award-winning creative solutions that connect with people. I was good at this because I had insight into people and wasn't afraid to follow it. I can see people and problems from different perspectives and keep an open mind about solutions. Then in 2007, after 20 years of marriage and raising two totally awesome daughters who were almost adults, my husband got a rare cancer and died 8 months later. I spent a couple of years just trying to live as best I could, but I was trying to live the same life I had with my husband. When I sold my house and moved in 2012, I realized that I was beginning a new life. I had a new perspective about moving on after this life-wrenching event. I also got a new position at Lear Burnett and became the head of a department where I managed the careers of more than 300 executives of all ages. I often found myself taking as much pleasure from their successes as from my own. So I decided to become a coach. I completed the training from the Coaches Training Institute and left my corporate job. Now I help others become more effective leaders, advance their careers, and live their lives with more joy and satisfaction, especially when they feel a little stuck. I also serve as advertising professional in residence at DePaul University, teaching personal branding, advertising campaigns, account management, among other things. So I'm sorry for indulging you in my story, but I want you to see how I wrote this story based on facts. I didn't describe anything. I was put you right there because if you write your story with facts, it's going to be much richer. And you learned a lot about me. And I just told you the story of who I am, but you can see what I care about, what I'm good at. And what I want you to do is write your story and discuss, not something like I obviously wrote this story after many, many drafts, but when you get started, just write the story, put yourself in a scene and see where it leads you, see what comes up for you. Stories often work best with prompts. So you could start with, on the day I was born. I was born in, you might have been born in some exotic place, or I am the child of, or start with a meaningful life experience, such as moving into a new city or a country, a significant death, mastering a significant skill or talent, overcoming an obstacle. I remembered that story about the Ravinia traffic jam and kind of decided to start there for this particular story. I want you to strive for rich story content, including key facts and experiences in your life contribute to who you are today. Don't worry about this. You don't have to share it with anyone. This is really for you to start looking at what really is this, how your story really shapes who you are. The next thing that we want you to do, and you can do this from your story. So when I'm working with students and doing this, that's the first thing we do. They write their story, they read their story in class, and then as a class, we kind of start leading, what did we learn about this person? What do we think your values are? We don't really have time to do that today, but we are going to kind of go through and try to do some little exercises to kind of, off the top of your head, what do you think your values are? So values are, what do your life experiences say about you? What did your story reveal is important to you? What makes you happy? What are your core beliefs? What's important to you? That's what you're going to look at if you do your story. But right now, I'm just going to ask you to take a list. And if you have that worksheet, make a list of the first 12 values that come to mind. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do that. And if you want some help, here's a list. You can find anything, of course, on the internet. There's a list of common values that are important to people. So this can give you a little help, and I'm going to set a timer here for 1 minute. If I can do that. On my watch. Twelve values. Okay, 1 minute is up. Now, I'm going to ask you to take that list of 12 and circle the 6 values that you think are more important than others. And chances are you might have some that are a little redundant. That often happens. But what do you think the 6 most important things? These are the 6 things that if they were not present in your life, you would be pretty unhappy. Okay, now we're going to move on. So the next thing we're going to do is list the actions that you do. This is a list. Make a list of at least 12 things that you do. Focus on tangible actions. It's nice to start with the word I. I write, I coach, I lead, I'm a strategist, I'm an organizer, I draw, I hike, I play board games. It could be I'm a yogi, I'm an avid gamer, I watch crappy movies. Whatever it is that you spend your time doing, both in work and not. What do you think you really love to do? And just write down at least 12 of them. I'm going to give you another minute. Oh, this is the same chart. Now circle the 6 that are actions that most represent your values. Think of those and say, which of these 6, you don't really have to narrow down what you do for this exercise or for your brand. You can do lots and lots of things, but maybe think about the top 6 that you think most represent your values. So that's when you're really living into your values, maybe the things that you love to do the most. So another way to think about this. I'm just going to give you a little time to do that. And we're going to move on to personality while you're doing that. So personality is pretty easy. It's your style, your traits, your character, your temperament. And sometimes if people have trouble thinking about what they want to write here, it's easy to ask somebody, well, how would you characterize your personality, particularly anybody who's close to you? So we're going to do this exact same exercise, make a list of 12 personality traits. And things that are, very, very authentically you. And you kind of get the drill now. Then we're going to do this. We're going to narrow it down to 6 after we do the 12. Oh, and here are some personality words to help you it's always nice to have words to prompt as prompts. Okay. No, if I can get my arrows back up. Now circle the 6 personalities that really say who you are, or that you most, here's where you can make some decisions. This is also a little bit more about, there may be something on that list that is an important part of your personality, but that you don't really want to communicate that to people. So think of this as the 6 personality traits that really say who you are, or that you would most want people to know about you and be part of your brand. So I'll let you do that while we move on. So impact is a lot harder, and it's probably going to take a while to really think about what that is. Maybe you already know, but what is your impact on the world around you? What makes you special? Why do you exist? These are pretty heavy questions. It's harder to land on and might take some observations, but let's get some ideas on paper. So a couple of things to think about is, why do people want you in their meetings or at their parties? What would happen if you didn't show up? What would be missing? You could think about maybe a meeting that you recently went to, or a class, or a family event, and think about what might have been if you weren't there. And that could be your impact. And a good way to think about this is, I am the blank that does this. So I am the friendly person that, is the life of the party, that makes a party more fun. I want you to try to write it with impact, and clearly think about your values and your actions, what you're good at, to help think about this. Now, I'm not going to give you much time to do this because it would take too much time, but this is we're going to talk more about this when we get to resumes. Understanding your impact is, if you were a brand like Southwest, this would be the Simon Sinek getting to why. Why you do things is, and why you're good at them, is an awful lot about the brand. But when we're doing a personal brand, what we really want to be able to communicate is, what is the impact we have? If you hire me, what impact am I going to have on your organization? And again, we'll talk more about this when we get to resumes. So there's a couple of resources I want to call your attention to. Like, who doesn't love an online quiz, right? Like, how many quizzes have you done on Facebook or Instagram? There's here 2 that I really like, and here's the reason why I like them. They help you get the language. It's very hard to talk about ourselves. I particularly like this one called Archetypes. It's totally free. You go to archetypes.com. You take this quiz in a few minutes, and it will tell you what your dominant, it will get you down to 3 archetypes. And each one of these archetypes has a lot of language associated with it. So if it says that you are creative, or a rebel, or visionary, you can click on these little things, and it will give you more language that will help you feel like, hey, this is language that maybe I want to use on my resume, on my LinkedIn profile, if I have a portfolio. And then this quiz over here, I never really used it as take the quiz, but it's fun to read. And you may have done this before, where you're a circle, a triangle, a squiggly line, or a square, and it kind of says what the dominant things are. So this might help you really understand what impact you have, what makes you different. I'm totally a squiggly line, because I like to put all these ideas out on the table and then just have it be chaotic before I get organized. Other people are, far more anal and want to be very, very logical. And I can be that too. None of us are just one of these things, but you kind of read the dominant characteristics, decide which one of these things you are, and that maybe help you figure out how to communicate who you are and what your authentic self are. So those are just 2. There's others. These don't cost anything, and they're kind of fun. They're good party things too. Oh, I didn't realize. So like, squares are detail oriented, triangles are more bottom line, circles love to have fun and laugh. They work best on teams. I suspect when I've done this with my students in PR and advertising, the vast majority of them are circles or squigglies, because they try new things, they get bored easily, they're idea generators. So now you have a chart that looks like this. and at least your values, actions, and personality you got a first stab on it. So in 30 minutes or less, will you have a really good start on your personal brand? I want you to live with what you have for a while. Pay attention to the values, pay attention to what makes you happy, pay attention to what makes you unhappy. And over time, narrow this down to something that is a chart like this. And this is not anything that you're going to show anybody else necessarily, but it is your strategy. We all know strategy because we're communicators, right? So this is mine. I worked on it for a long time, many years ago. I haven't really changed it much. My impact is I'm the illumination that creates momentum for a brighter future. And of course, when I did that, it was primarily for my coaching business. But it also, that's what I like to do, create momentum for people, for things, and creating momentum is the impact that I have most of the time. My values are freedom, creativity, generosity, diversity, and integrity. It took me a while to get to these 5 words, but and I actually got there in many ways because I looked back on my life and figured out when was I the least happy, and though something there was not present. I got to generosity because nothing makes me happier than giving gifts. And when I, have been short of money or something, I feel like I can't really be generous. I have to be generous with my time. Generosity is just what makes me happy. I'm a champion of ideas and people. I'm a connector. I teach, I coach, I write, I listen, I solve problems. I play strategic board games. It is really what I love to do in my spare time, especially with family and friends. And I like the old-fashioned kind that sit on a table. I see the big picture, I have perspective, and I am visionary. Although the board games I play are not old-fashioned, I like to play the hottest ones, the hottest trending ones. Right now I'm into Wingspan. Personality, I'm casual and approachable. I'm an advocate. I advocate for causes and people. I think I'm fun. My husband used to think I was funny, but I actually don't know that anybody else ever thought I was funny, but he did. I'm passionate, I'm kind, I'm impulsive, very impulsive to a fault. And I'm very strategic. I think about things very strategically and if I can pull off my impulse, take off my impulses, then I actually think strategically about something. It tends to work out a little bit better. So you can see now, because I've told you my story, I've shown you my strategy, how my brand is beginning to take shape. And then you have to bring your brand to life. Color, you want to pick a color palette, 1 to 3 colors. Create a mood board, get a new headshot. Sometimes so easy to get headshots now. Thinking about when I say get a new headshot, your headshots might be fine, but maybe you want to think about, well, what am I really trying to communicate with this headshot? Create a mood board that's the kind of photography, like this is all, like I would suggest you do a website for yourselves. But even if you don't, your mood board can help you figure out what you're going to put in your LinkedIn header or colors on your resume. And in doing your brand design, and some of you might have a good background in design, you know that this is primarily going to come off of the personality part of your strategy as to what do you want to communicate about your personality with design. Choose a primary font, a secondary font, and that characterizes your brand voice. And now you're going to really bring your brand to life with content. And the most important thing is your about me. Using the colors and font and voice of your brand, write your about me story. Bring who you are, your actions and your personality and beliefs into your about me story. Think about what you want to say to someone about you if they're meeting you for the first time. You might have various versions of your about me or just one that you revise from time to time, which I would recommend. And start with putting it LinkedIn or your website, your portfolio if you have one. And we didn't go into a lot about ambition, but you'll notice on the chart, I think that you have, it does say ambition on the top. The reason why I don't go through all of that is not because you don't have ambitions, but your ambition is less about your brand and more about what you want to do. And I think people are pretty good about that. The only thing I would suggest to you, if you think about your ambition and you want to put that in your about me, make it big, don't make it little. Like, I want to be, I'm looking for a job where I can have an impact, is kind of like, that's not much of an ambition. Like, think about what your dream is. You dream of winning a Cannes Lion, or you dream of making, changing the world in some way. You don't have to be that big, but an ambition should be something that is a little out there, not just, I need a job, which we all do. So you're about me, and I just want to be clear that, so like I was talking to Britt Nolan, who's the chief creative officer, now he's president, chief executive officer of Leo Burnett now. And he said, when he sees portfolios for creatives, he reads the about me, and if he doesn't like it, it doesn't really help him see the person. If it isn't well written, if it doesn't give him some sense, he doesn't even go to look at the work. So this is a really important part of who you are. And now with LinkedIn, you've got so much opportunity to tell your story that this is extremely important. And I would definitely work hardest on this. And I think you want to pull from the story that you wrote and a little bit about and your strategy to kind of say, okay, now what is it I'm going to tell you about myself? One way you could think about this is that interviews where the interviewer says, oh, what would you like? Tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you want to start with? Like, you want to start with, what your current job is, or you want to tell them something a little personal about who you are? I would suggest that in your about me, you write it like a story and you tell them something personal. One way to kind of start getting at this is also what we call an elevator speech. How much time do I have? I feel like which is I am, I love, I'm really good at. It's another way for you to get started. Or if you like to have a personal statement at the top of your resume, that's going to be a little bit more professional and not, I hate the word professional, so I'm sorry I said it, but a little bit more about jobs and not as personal, but still you want to get to the I am right now. I'm a student at DePaul, or I am a account executive at Zeno Group, or I'm a social media junkie. I don't know what you're going to say, but something very specific. And then you want to say, I love, like, what is it that you love to do? And then you say you're really good at. And that little, in 3 or 4 sentences, you write that down and then kind of finesse it into a little bit of a paragraph. You're going to get yourself to a point where you have something you could put in the top of your resume, or could be part of your about me, that says who you are and what you love to do and what you're really good at. Very tight. This is mine, which was part of the introduction. I'm a professional lecture teacher, former marketing executive, agency executive, and professional leadership coach. So it says right off the top what I am. Passionate about raising the next generation of advertising and public relations professionals. My expertise in crafting brand strategies and inspiring creative, combined with my training as a professional coach, gives me a unique ability to create momentum for people and businesses. So in one little paragraph, you know what I am, you know what I love to do, what I aspire to do, what my expertise is, and my impact. It's kind of what you want to get to. So a couple of other things. You want to bring your brand to life, determine where you will communicate your brand. LinkedIn and Twitter for the field that you're in are probably price of entry. The rest of it is really up to you on whether you have a blog or a side hustle, but LinkedIn, Twitter, and your resume are probably price of entry. I also want to say, well, I find these things a little bit difficult. LinkedIn does have a lot of really good resources about how to leverage them. How to rock your LinkedIn profile in 8 steps is not terribly different than what I've told you today. It's a little bit different, but they really emphasize exactly what I'm emphasizing today is what's your story. So that's another resource that you can look at. Speaking of which, now let's talk about resumes. I know you're all interested in resumes. I guess I feel a little bit like I should pause for a second to see if anybody needs to catch up or has any questions, or I guess you're monitoring the chat. You can put them in the chat. Okay, I guess I'll just keep going. It's weird when I don't have any interaction like this. So about that resume. Oh, I see something in the chat. Should I look and see what the chat says? This is great content. Well, thank you very much. Okay, good. So, think back to when you first sat down to write your resume. What was that experience like? How much did you hate it? Everybody raised their hand if they told me they hated it. Who likes writing a resume? Does anybody like writing their resume? No. Why? Because they suck. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to try to make it fun for you, and you will always have fun. You know, coaching teaches me that we can always look at things with a different perspective. So what I want you to do is think about your resume as fun, because wow, this is an ad for you. So, and you might not procrastinate it, but you might still. I have some ideas for that too. So did you start with a template that you got from here, like a place? By the way, this does have good templates. It's called resumes.com. If you're looking for a template, I just don't want you to, then you fill in the places that you worked and the dates you worked in your titles. So this is all very tedious. And then you start writing bullet points. That's generally what happens. People start with a template. Did you all start with a template? Okay. And then you filled in your responsibilities, education, skills, and then you proofed it and you showed it around for feedback. And a lot of people told you it was great. Well, I will tell you, I probably would not tell you it was great. I have a lot of people come to me and say, when you look at my resume, and then I say, I will look at your resume, but I'm going to rip it apart and you have to take it. You can take what I say or leave it. And then a lot of times they come back to me and say, but I've shown this to so many people and they really liked it. I'm like, okay, well then why'd you ask me? And you'll figure out why I don't like a lot of resumes in a minute. So let me ask you this. When you have an assignment and sit down to write, do you start with a template and fill in the bullet points? Or do you start by thinking about what you want and need to communicate? This is the problem with resumes. You start with a template and then you put in these bullet points, and based on all kinds of crazy ass rules that everybody's told you about resumes, and then it's very boring and very generic. And the number one thing you don't want your resume to be is boring or generic. They're very boring to read. They don't have to be. They can paint a picture of the awesome person you are. They can communicate what is unique and special about you. Highlight what you have accomplished in your life, not just what jobs you've held, and show your personality. You want to write your resume so that it tells a story, and it will be the story of you. The story that you just created in about 5 minutes that you're getting started. You're going to write your story. You're going to do your strategic plan. And then you're going to say, now what do I want to communicate on my resume? Just so, wait a minute, I'm going to go back for 1 second. And so I'm going to show you, just so you, a lot of you might be saying, oh, but I have all these rules and I've told this, I told this. As I go further in this, you're going to all come up with, it's got to be on 1 page. How am I ever going to get this on 1 page? So I'm going to show you an example of one of my former students. And I did get her permission to do this because I said, I think a lot of people might be looking at your LinkedIn profile. And you can, she totally wants you to link in with her. So you're happy to do this. So this is one of my former students. Her name is Grace Gubrud. This is her. So she created a personal brand in my personal branding class. This is her LinkedIn profile over here. Oh, this is just a screenshot from her header. See how she's got this design. This is a huge piece of real estate for you. You come to her and you immediately, this is her first impression. And her headline, she has a headline, creative strategist, type A, dog mom. It says what she is under her name, communication strategist at Scout Lab. Some people might have taken that headline and put it here. That's fine. There's no rules. But she has this wallpaper that's part of the design that she created for her personal brand. And she very carefully figured out what she's got this lovely photograph that's really nice picture of her. And you actually feel like she is talking to you. And then I want to call your attention to her resume because that's what we're talking about right now. And also when I asked her for her permission to use this in my class, she has her resume on LinkedIn. And it's very easy to print out. She said to me, my personal branding has definitely opened doors for me in the past few years. I want to talk to you a little bit about, I want to show you, and I'm going to talk to you how to get to it. Some of the things that she has on her resume. First of all, it's jam-packed, but it's easy to read. She does a couple of things really well. For one, she has the companies that she worked bolded, not her titles. Associate strategist, junior account strategist, social media coordinator, and freelance copywriter is nowhere near as interesting as For Good and Company, Pray Tell, City Cruises, and ALX Creatives. Where you work is more differentiating than your titles at this stage of your career. So I would make them the primary thing. It's very easy to see her job progression, so it's very easy to read. But what I really want to talk about is what she writes in these bullet points. So she has here under ALX Creatives, freelance copywriter. Her first bullet point says wrote, rewrote, and rewrote copy for a variety of clients, even the picky ones. Built unique brand voices that speak to audiences across social platforms. Let's go to a couple of other ones. Anchored 37 social channels, spanning 8 cities and 7 brands, steered 59% increase in website traffic. Responsible for content creation, community management, and not going overboard with boat puns. See how much fun this is? And with this rewrote, for a variety of clients, even the picky ones, I'm like, she's going to be great at client management. She understands writing. She's really authentic. She knows just write something. She writes it until she gets it right. And by the way, I already know she's a type A personality because it's right up here, creative strategist, type A, and dog mom. She has a resume, they're filled with personality. And I feel her impact, not just what she did. This job right here, where she is right now, she's only had since June. And so it's more in the present tense, but she said, so she hasn't had that much time to have an impact, but she still shows how she did things. Remember when I said how you do things is more important than what you do? Most resumes just focus on the what. So she says, utilize primary and secondary research to discover creative insights that inform strategic campaigns across industries. She is producing content for these clients. So I'm going to get into a little bit more about how to do this, so in the interest of time, but I just wanted to give you that example because I suspect your resume doesn't look like that. Let's take a fresh look at your resume. I did ask if you happen to have a copy of it in front of you. If not, you can do it another time because I think I am running out of time. How much time do I have? No, a little bit.
Yep, so we've got about 3 or 4 minutes left of this, and then we're going to switch into Q&A.
Okay. So start by doing an assessment of your current resume. Cross out your name, write in a fake name, circle all of the things on your resume that this made-up person could not possibly have done. And I suspect you will have very little. Now, if you think about Grace's resume right now, she'd have a lot to circle that was really just her. Circle those things that you and only you could take claim to. Then what I want you to do is write down everything you circled on your resume, if anything. Look at everything else and expand your story using very specific facts that demonstrate your impact. Ask yourself, what am I most proud of? What did I contribute? So if you're talking about a job that you had, just think to yourself because when I run this exercise, if I were doing this with each one of you, I would say, tell me about this job. And everything you would tell me about that job would be more interesting than what you said on your resume. So write everything down. You really want to let people know about, write the story you want your resume to tell. Focus on how and why and impact, but you got to get off your template. You got to get into a notebook. You've got to get into a Word doc or however you want to do it so that you're writing what you, for every job, for every experience you've had, what do you really want to contribute? What do you want to say about that? And don't worry about whether you're going to get it on one page. If Grace can get it on one page, you can too. Because eventually you're going to go back to your template, but you're going to now know what you want to say. And you're also going to know what you want to say because you've created your personal brand. Let your first draft be too long, then design and edit your content. You will be able to get it on one page. And don't leave off your personal content. What you do for fun makes you interesting. Don't lose the story just because you might be using bullet points. And by the way, nobody said you had to use bullet points. I want you to keep a couple of things in mind when you create your resume. First, again, people don't hire you for what you've done. They hire you for who you are. all of you probably could apply for the exact same jobs. Only one of them is going to get it. They're not going to hire you because you don't, everybody's got the skills and knowledge. They're going to hire you because of who you are, what you bring to the party. And that's your personality, your values, your actions, your impact. Include how you do what you do will differentiate you from others. You know, Grace didn't just say, I write. She said, I write, I rewrite, I then rewrite again. I got a great picture of what kind of person she is and her personality. So tell your story with specific facts, from manage social media campaign, which is very generic, to created I made this up, of course, created campaigns that launched new identifying soap on TikTok and Instagram. Through optimization, I doubled followers and sales. That took that statement on your resume from generic to impact. Remember this, people don't hire you for what you have done, they hire you for who you are, and including how and why will differentiate you from others. A few other suggestions, I'll go real fast. Use authentic language that anyone would understand, avoid industry jargon, show your personality, make it interesting. Beware of meaningless results. I know a lot of people have told you, show results in your resume. Just because sales went up 10% doesn't make it impressive. What did you do to drive results? Update your resume every 6 months with awesome accomplishments. And if you don't have any accomplishments, you need a new job. Keep the hiring manager out of your head. This is your actual life, not one you are creating to impress somebody else. And put the places you worked ahead of your job title. Chances are it's more interesting. Those are just a few little things. Here's a couple of book recommendations. Michelle Obama's, I don't know if you haven't read her book, Becoming, I highly recommend it. But this is her journal, which is essentially a guided journal for discovering your voice. She has a lot of questions that would help you develop your personal brand. It's like a very cool journal. It will help you tell your story. It's a lovely, and if nothing else, it's a great gift. And then this is one of my favorite marketing gurus, Bernadette Giabois. She talks about brands telling stories. And it's where the quote I used earlier today, you don't need to compete when you know who you are, because she's basically making the point about who you are and brands. It's similar to Simon Sinek's, is what differentiates a brand. It also differentiates you. So those are two additional resources that you might want to look into. So now you know what makes you happy or unhappy, how you live your values through your actions and your personality, the impact you have on the world around you, what to communicate about your authentic self in your resume and LinkedIn, and how to be to thine own self be true. And really, we did this in an hour. Pretty cool, huh? And I have one more thing to leave you. This is a picture of the Cubs winning the World Series. I have a philosophy about in life, I guess. It's kind of a boring philosophy, I guess, but there are 4 really important things for you to constantly think about: your attitude, your skills, your knowledge, and experiences. It happens to be the acronym ASK, only spelled with an E. I didn't make this up. I learned it from a motivational speaker a long time ago named Jeff Fisher, who used to be, played for the Super Bowl winning Bears, the 85 Bears, and he was the coach for the Tennessee Titans. He said that by the time you get to the NFL, you better have the skill and knowledge and experience to win. What difference between winners and losers is attitude. That is true for all of us. Attitude is what is differentiating our leadership style, our passions, but our whole life, we're going to be improving our skills, improving our knowledge, and getting new experiences. You can think about your resume, your brand, how you communicate is, what is your attitude? What skills do you really have? What knowledge do you have? What are your experiences and how we can communicate them? And think always about improving on all of them. This is lifelong, not something that goes away when you graduate from college. Ask plus E is what I often call it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nina. We really appreciate it. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes left. I want to give anyone the opportunity, if they have a question, to please ask it. You can put it in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask. I'll give you guys just a second to do what you need to do. And if not, I have a question. So we can always start there too. Go for it.
Hi, I had a question regarding specifically like the framework. If there's ever an instance where you have negatives, such as like impulsive, or I put like worried, or forgetful sometimes. Is there a way to make that into a positive or include it in something to make it appear positive, or is it something you just keep on the down low and don't really address?
Well, that is up to you, but most of our negatives are positives and are an important part of who we are. If, a lot of times in a interview, somebody will ask you, like, what aren't you good at? First of all, I would tell you, I don't believe anybody has any weaknesses. You have no weaknesses. You just have things that you're good at, things that you're better at, and things that you don't like. And I think it's very endearing to put forth and knowing what you are good at. I'm not the greatest at attention to detail. I can do it. But being honest about that is really endearing. So I would say, like I said, I was impulsive. What was one of the ones that you were saying?
I put impulsive, forgetful, or worried.
Okay, well,
As an
worried.
example.
I got to tell you something. Having somebody who worries a little too much working for me wouldn't be the worst thing that ever happened. Sometimes, if you express your worry so that your team is worried around you, but if worry motivates you, like, I worry about not getting the job done, so I get it done away. I'm the first person to turn in my class assignments. Like, I'm a worrier like that. There's nothing wrong. We all have those things. You might be talking to a worrier, say, I'm a worrier too. So I think there's some things you might not want to reveal. Like, you might not say, I have a problem with depression. I mean, I don't think we want to get into our, real difficulty things that said that they might be hiring somebody who needs therapy, but we probably all are in therapy. So what difference does it make? So I would say it is endearing to be your authentic self. And it is very, very refreshing when you go into an interview and so confident to be who yourself. So sometimes that's not always the best things, but your negatives also are positives.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
And if there aren't any questions, I do really want to push on this personal. I always asked a question at the end of every interview I had when I was at Leo Burnett. About 20 minutes in, I always asked, what do you like to do for fun? And it was always the most important question that I asked. And I have a funny story about that, but I don't want to tell it if I only have 2 minutes left and there's more questions.
No, we're going until 40. So we had 15 minutes we've still got about 10 minutes.
Okay,
but I
so
do
I'll
have
just tell you this. I'll tell you this because it's a little bit off of Robbie's question here, is that, so I was interviewing somebody, but at the time I was the chief client officer at Leo Burnett. We were trying to hire an account director. There were 3 candidates. It wasn't my decision. They were having trouble finding who they wanted me to meet the 3 candidates because they were having difficulty deciding. So one of the candidates, really, I guess she was very, very nervous because I was in a fancy office or whatever. I try to be very accessible, but she was nervous. Her interview was not going well. She really couldn't answer most of the questions that I asked in any reasonable way. And I was really, there's something wrong here because I don't know how she got to my office. So I thought, well, I try to make people comfortable. So I said, well, what do you like to do for fun? And she looked at me and she said, what do you mean? I'm like, it's not a trick question. What do you do for fun? She was very uncomfortable telling me. So I said, well, tell me this. What did you do Saturday night? She said, I was in a ballroom dancing competition. This was not on her resume. She didn't seem to want to tell me. And I said, was it fun? And she said, yes, but I didn't know that's what you meant. I just, do you like, yeah, I ballroom dance 3 nights a week. Suddenly this person became so interesting. And I learned that she's competitive. I said, well, what do you like about it? Her eyes lit up. It's competitive. I didn't win Saturday night. I was really mad. We lost by 1 point, blah, blah. I do it every night. It's how I get rid of stress. Suddenly I'm like, okay, like she's competitive and she wants to win. Those are things I want to hire. Unfortunately, she didn't get the job. The worst part, though, was when we went and met about these 3 candidates. I said, well, I don't know about the ballroom dancer. It was a terrible interview until we started talking about ballroom dancing. Nobody else had even known she did. She had never told this to anybody. I hope that story will make you realize that you need to tell people what you love to do and who you are.
Wow, that was That was
I
really
mean, that's
interesting.
an honest to God true story. I tell it all the time. I'm sort of glad I have it because it's such a ridiculous example. But I've just noticed so many young people not wanting to share who they are. And you really need to do it. And you can do it in a fun and interesting way because we want to hire interesting people, especially in our business, right? If you, and by the way, we all are, like, you're members of PRSSA or whatever, you're all qualified for so many jobs, and you're all qualified for the same job.
That led me actually to a question. Your story, it kind of made me think, like, what should I, as a student, in my elevator pitch, or like if I'm at a networking event, what are the things that I should like prioritize? You know, if I have 30 seconds, I know you said the who am I, what do I love, and what am I good at? But like on that, like, you know, we all do so many things and we have so many aspects to our lives. How do you know which ones are, yeah,
That's a really good question. That's really your choice. I mean, I think, you know, for the elevator speech, you want to like, and it's especially if it's going on your resume, and it depends upon what your, you know, what you're after. You want to let people know what people need to know how to like think about you. You know, oh, this is a copywriter. This is a, you know, a strategist. You know, so if you're really in the job market, you need to put in there what you have to somehow kind of say, well, this is what I know. Right now I'm a student, but that also from a conversation standpoint, that's not going to sound very good. But I think what you kind of know is like, it's like what Grace said, I'm a type A personality. And what does that mean for me? What people want to know is, what does that mean for you? Or I absolutely love creativity, but you know, and I'm really interested in like ideas. My favorite idea was this, or I would focus on your passions and your personality and know what you're good at. Like, it's very easy. So I've had a lot of students who've done this, and the students who are really like organizational freaks, like totally like Monica on Friends, if you ever watched that, that's a really easy thing to communicate. I think if you have that, you want to just you want to say what is the most important thing about you. Like, one way to think about this is, I have this assignment in one of my classes is a career journal, and I have like 8 questions that are the most common questions that you guys would probably be asked in an interview. And the first one is, tell me about yourself. How would you answer that question without being boring? Start, you know, write it down and then use that as your like willingness. But you have to be willing to sort of say, like Robbie might say, I'm very impulsive, but this is what that, you know, impulse also means I have pretty good instincts and I can think on my feet. Like, you want to say something that you want to tell people about yourself, but you want to give it some thought and make sure that you've got an answer, you know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like there's so much, especially as like for those of us, like I'm a junior, but I'm going to be graduating early. And so like, it feels like everything is coming up so fast. And I have so many things that I want to share, or like, I feel like I should share, but like.
That's really good. That's better than the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. People in the group, in the chat are agreeing. Like, it feels like it's so hard to prioritize, like, what are people actually going to care about? And what do people actually like when
okay,
I'm talking
stop
about.
right there. Stop right there. Get the hiring manager out of your head. I don't care. If somebody told you to have different resumes for different situations, I want you to wipe that out. This is you. This is your actual life. This is not, you're not writing this because you want to impress that person or that person. I want you to get those hiring people out, and not what they want to hear, but what you want to tell. Now, obviously, they want to know whether or not you're going to be successful. All they want to know is, are you going to be successful here? And you will be successful there if it's an environment that respects your values. But you're doing the interviewing just as much as they are. I don't want you to take a job for someplace like, look, if freedom and diversity like mine are high on your list, I had a lot of freedom in my job. my whole career at Leo Burnett, I had a lot of freedom in my job. I realized that that was one of my values when that freedom was taken away. And I couldn't take it anymore, and that's when I left. Because the culture had changed, and there was a lot more reporting, and you know, and I don't want to get into that. But you do have to know what people want. You're going to have a job description in front of you, but I don't want you to change who you are. So you decide what you want to tell people about you, what you need to know about the company to know whether you'll be successful there. And get those people out of your heads, and you will have a much easier time writing your resume and your LinkedIn profile.
Okay.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're good. That was exactly, I mean, that's the exact things that like we as students like need to hear right now is like, we're coming up with these things and we're just starting our career. So I think that kind of stuff is super important. Does anybody else have any thoughts, questions? I'm going to go ahead right now and I'm going to put Nina's LinkedIn in the chat for everybody.
Yes, please.
And
please connect with me.
It's seriously, guys, connect with everybody you meet on LinkedIn. I got my first internship from the PRSSA, DePaul PRSA District Conference 2 years ago. So like connecting with people is so important. And
also,
I'm also,
I wouldn't, when I was at Leo Burnett and somebody would submit a resume, I never would, if I was going to interview somebody, I went right to their LinkedIn profile, and I immediately determined whether or not, especially in communications, I could tell right then if their LinkedIn profile was boring, and that's even more important now. So your LinkedIn profile is really important, and keep it up to date. I'm not that good at keeping mine up to date, to be honest, but it's important. And then be active on LinkedIn, because that's how people find you. I've known more people, it's like amazing how much easier it is to find first of all, people are applying for jobs on LinkedIn and people are looking. The other little tip I'll give you about LinkedIn is, so say you wanted to work at, you know, Golden Harris, or you want to work at McDonald's, or you want to work for the Chicago Cubs or something. If they're looking for someone in communications, one of the things they might do first is look at who's already following them on LinkedIn and then go to their profiles. LinkedIn is an individual platform. It's about people, not companies. So companies don't really do much with LinkedIn, but if you're following somebody and they look at who you're following, that shows that you're interested in them, and that will bring your name to the top.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like awesome advice. LinkedIn is an amazing tool. And I'm sure we all hear that like every day now, but it really is.
I would
so
have
important.
like my hiring person at Leo Burnett would say, well, this person has been following us on LinkedIn for like 2 years. I'm like, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And then you also, if you're following them, you see things that come up and you can comment on them. And all of a sudden you are in the network about, so if you want to work for a PR agency, follow every single PR agency that's on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Well, that is our time. Thank you everyone for attending this personal branding session. Our progress report lunch hour is next. It starts at 11:45 Central Time. Check your email for the link, or you can go to DePaulPRSSA.com/progress report. The password is progress report, and the link will be in there as well. Thank you so much, Nina. I hope everyone
I hope you found it helpful.
All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Are we good?
Yes, we are
Okay.
good.